Ok, bueno, damas y caballeros, gracias a todos y todas por estar aquí en el día de hoy. Vamos a dar por comenzado, ¿verdad? Esta magnífica charla que nos trae en el día de hoy el doctor Kyle Ortiz, presidente de primer año del programa de neurocirugía de la Universidad de Indiana. Kyle es egresado de la Escuela de Medicina del Recinto de Ciencias Médicas, también egresado del Colegio de Mayagüez. We go a long way back. Desde que estuvimos en el mismo lado, en el lab de la doctora Belinda Pastrana, y fuimos desde que se nos cayeran viales con proteína purificada a los dos de las manos, a pues tratar de salvar vidas, ¿verdad? Caer más adelante que yo, ¿verdad? Porque ahora mismo yo estoy en tercer año, estamos todavía figuring it out. Pero nada, en verdad es un excelente, increíble honor tenerlo él aquí. Un gran amigo, un gran mentor también que ha sido, que yo sé que también lo puede ser para ustedes y que va a ser el primero en esta serie de charlas que, ¿verdad? Que usando ese temática de to Neurosx, por así decirlo, de Neurosurgery, pues esta se va a llamar Programs in Neurosurgery. La idea es tener a residentes, ¿verdad? Puertorriqueños que se hayan graduado de escuelas de medicina aquí en Puerto Rico, que estén ahora mismo en los Estados Unidos, ¿verdad? Porque, pues, como entendemos, el contexto ahora mismo en términos del campo es que el programa que tenemos para neurocirugía, ¿no? Va a cesar de existir oficialmente en el 2022. Kyle fue básicamente pues, la última admisión que hubo ese programa antes de que pasara pues todo lo que conocemos pues fue uno de los que afortunadamente junto a todos y todas pudo encontrar un programa que la acogiera, que en este caso fue el programa de Indiana. Él me ha hablado un montón sobre ese programa. Fun fact para aquellos que no sepan, ese es el programa donde reside el doctor Cowell Gadol, que si algunos de ustedes alguna vez han leído el Neurosurgical Atlas, que es básicamente una fuente, un recurso bien dirigido y bien condensado de lo que es la neurocirugía y sus distintas técnicas, pues ese profesor que es el que la corre es facultad en esa universidad, así que pues algo ahí medio exciting para conocer. Nada, sin without further ado, lo voy a dejar con Kyle. Como saben, siempre grabamos estas presentaciones, o si de alguna manera se sienten incómodos o incómodas y prefieren dejar las cámaras apagadas, con toda confianza. Después de la presentación que dará el doctor Ortiz, definitivamente, ¿verdad? Habrá un poquito de tiempo para preguntas o dudas que quieran, ¿verdad? Traer. Eh, Nada, Kyle, empieza tuyo.
Okay. Thank you very much for that introduction, Sergio. Very kind as always. I'm just going to give the presentation in English because it's going to be talking about my home institution and it might as well be in English. So, as Sergio mentioned, I had originally matched into the neurosurgery program in Puerto Rico this past cycle. Unfortunately, the program is closing, and I essentially had to scramble to find somewhere else. It's very hard, let me tell you, to try to figure out where you're going to go after you matched, and then you have to find a new place. It's a very stressful thing. I have to say the leadership from the University of Puerto Rico program helped me through it, and helped me find this wonderful place. So I'm just gonna talk very briefly about it. I've fallen in love with the institution just as much as I've fallen in love with the University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez, which is my alma mater, and the Recinto Ciencia Médica in San Juan. So I'm not the official spokesperson for any of this, right? I'm just a resident in the neurosurgery program at IU. I'm not the program coordinator. I'm not the human resources or social relations person. I'm just the resident. Okay. So I'm just putting that out there for whatever academic or institutional policy thing that may be going on and I don't know about. So let's just give a quick overview of the program. This is the very extensive faculty that is present in the program. Interesting to mention that a couple of these faculty are actually graduated from this program. And I think that actually speaks volumes, right? The fact that somebody will go through 7 years of residency and decide to go back to the home institution, it just means that they feel very confident with the environment, they feel at home, and it's because of that reason, right, that I also very much want to tell you guys about this place because it feels very warm, right? It feels like a good training place that's also very friendly and gives you a great training. This is the chair, Dr. Timmons. Interestingly enough, there's only like 4 chairs that are women in neurosurgery. Dr. Timmons is one of them. Then we have our program coordinator, Mary Gallagher. All these people are, power engines for the program and keeping it alive and extending it. And I very much take a pleasure in introducing them. These are the hard workers of the program. These are the current residents, starting from the PGY1s all the way up to the PY7s. These people truly feel like family. I thought that was going to be very hard to find outside of Puerto Rico, finding a residency that was as large as this one and that still the residents felt close to one another. And I can attest that that is very much the case with everybody here. We do activities together, we go to events. It's, people treat each other with respect and kindness. It's a very nice group and cohort of people that honestly I'm very blessed to have met them. So why come to Indiana University, right? So first of all, it's in Indianapolis, Indiana, which coming from Puerto Rico is pretty far away. It's very cold. The other day was 25 degrees outside, and I don't appreciate that very much being from the island. But if you can get past that fact, Indianapolis is actually a pretty cool place. But going back to the academics, right? IU. So we have various training centers within the residency program. We have a Methodist hospital, which is like the big tertiary center for a lot of the things that happen in Indiana. We have the Riley Hospital for Children's, which is the pediatric hospital. We have University Hospital. We have Eskenazi, which is interestingly enough the county hospital, right? And it looks very nice. It's actually nicer than that picture right there. And then we have the VA down here. So we have all these institutions, and they're very close to one another, right? So transportation, it's not a major issue, and parking is readily available. So I would say one of the big strong suits of the program, in addition to the very nice people that are in it, is the cases. There are lots and lots of cases. Just so you have an idea, Methodist alone, we have like 4 ORs, and Eskenazi we have 1, and that's just like dedicated ORs that are like for us. We have 1 in the VA, Senate Street, which is like an outpatient surgery type of thing, a Gamma Knife, and a dedicated angio suite, right? All of these, it's just for the neurosurgery residents, okay? There's much more ORs and things, but this is just like for the neurosurgery itself, neurosurgery cases. One of the nice things is there's 19 of us right now, actually. But the thing is, we are split up among these hospitals, so it really doesn't feel that bad or overcrowded. All the opposite. We have a lot of cases that sometimes go uncovered because, there's only so many residents, right? That's one of the reasons that we actually want to expand. Instead of taking 2-3 residents a year, right now we're taking 2 residents 1 year, 3 residents the other, to just expand to full 3 on resident a year cohort. There's a very vast diversity of cases. There's vascular, skull-based, oncology, functional, peds, spine, you name it. And even as a PGY1, you get to operate. Now, that's one of the things that really, called my attention when I was interviewing for the second time, right? Was the fact that as a PGY1, you go into the OR one-on-one with the attending, okay? You can also scrub in where there's another more senior resident on, but like you as a PGY1 can actually go in and be one-on-one with the attending. And a PGY1 could do 2, sometimes 3 cases, right? Different portions of the cases, right, where they're being trained. But my point is, as a PGY1, you're going into the OR, okay? That's not the case in every place, okay? That's something that's very important, because at the end of the day, you're going to be a neurosurgery, you're going to be a neurosurgeon, so you need to do cases. And just so you have an idea, sometimes some of the people can graduate with 2,000, 2,500 cases maybe, and while in other institutions are graduating with maybe 1,000 cases. if you look at it from that perspective, the person that graduated from the institution that has 1,000 cases, right? When you compare them to one of our residents, it's like we had twice the amount of, surgical experience. And that's like having 7 years on that other person. Okay. So believe me when I tell you this, you get very, very well trained here surgically. It's actually phenomenal. And that's very interesting because IU doesn't usually pop into your mind when you're thinking of good places to do neurosurgery. But let me tell you something, this is a great place to do neurosurgery. In addition to being a high volume center, you have a very nice type of environment where people are very friendly and very warm. Let me tell you that. It's called the Midwestern, attitude. So this is how an overview of how the program kind of looks like. So in your first year, that's your intern year, you're going to do 4 months of neurocritical care. You're going to do a month of neuroradiology, a month of trauma, a month of anesthesia, a month of neuropathology, and then you're going to do like 4 months of a neurosurgery rotation. In my case, that's going to be in the veterans, and that's the veterans junior, right? You're a junior resident in the VA. Then as a PY2, you start to go to the other places. You're going to start to go to Eskenazi, Riley, and you may also go back to Methodist. That's where you see here, this is just an example of one of the PY2s. They have the neurovascular junior as one of their later rotations in the year. Then in third year, you start mixing it up here. You're a senior, okay? You're a senior resident at Riley. That means you're the boss of a junior resident, right? That's a lot of responsibility. You're communicating directly with the attendings. You're doing more critical portions of surgical procedures. And this is in the pediatric hospital. You're then senior also in Eskenazi, senior in the VA. And then this person also had a functional neurosurgery rotation in Methodist. Then you go to fourth year. Fourth year is more or less the same story as the third year. Again, you're senior in these locations. It's more or less the same. Then you have your PY5 year. That's an elective year. There's people that are doing MBAs, going to Australia to do rotations for an entire year. It's, the program leadership is very open-minded of what you can do in that PY5 year. It could be research also, like full-blown dedicated research. You can do research as a PY anything, but you could definitely take a year of just being dedicated to research, okay? Then you have your PY6 year. In our program, PY6 is the chief year. So our program is actually like a 6-year program, believe it or not. And you're chief in the 6th year, and we break up, this is like the Methodist Hospital because it's the biggest or the most busy center we have right now. So they break it up into, you're being the chief of neurovascular for a couple of months, then you're being the chief of neurosurgery general, then you're being the chief of neurotrauma. It's a very big service. So sometimes, when there's 3 chief residents, this works out very well because you could just divide those 3 major groups between the chief residents. Then you have your 7th year. 7th year is for a dedicated and folded fellowship or transition of practice. This also, you can do your fellowship in endovascular, skull-based spine. There's a pretty hefty diversity of things where you could train. The exceptions being, functional or peds, because those, you always tend to just make a full dedicated fellowship on those types of specialties. There's just a list of them here. You could also do neurocritical care. That at least this is the ones that are actually offered here. Then the best part is, of course, the residents themselves. As I said, we tend to do activities. This is Dr. Shapiro, which is the old chair. Now we have Dr. Timmons. These are all the wonderful residents that are available for the program. We get invited to pretty cool stuff, like this was the Rev at the Indianapolis Speedway. There is the biggest speedway in the world is in Indianapolis. I haven't gone there. I'm thinking of maybe, I don't know if there's like a rental service for race cars or something, but that's definitely something I'm going to look into because I very much want to do something like that. There's Dr. Lane. He's one of the graduates of our program that came back and now is attending. It's a very nice group of people. So it's Indianapolis, right? There's a bunch of things to do, mostly during the summer, because I'm not gonna lie, it gets really cold out here. It's already 25. It's right now it's like at 40 degrees, but the other day was like at 25, 30 or degrees more or less. As I said, there's a bunch of museums here. Indianapolis has surprisingly a healthy number of museums. There's a very big theoretical scene here. Like there's a bunch of like these small theaters you see here, like where people do plays and stuff. There's a football stadium, the Lucas Oil. There's the very famous Indiana State Fair. There's stuff you could do outside. Now, the thing I like about Indianapolis is that it's not a huge metropolitan area. It's not like New York City or Boston. You can very quickly get out of the city very easily. Okay. Then you're going to find a bunch of cornfields. But my point is, you can get out of the city and into the suburbs, or there's also stuff to do. And you have various states that are located pretty close to here. You could go to Kentucky, Michigan. There's a whole bunch of places you could go just driving there. You don't even have to take a plane because it's within 4 hours, a lot of these places. So from that perspective, it's very strategically positioned. So the question then is, how do I get into this wonderful place, right? There's the good grades, good scores, et cetera, but the reality is that this is a very close-knit program, and we very much are going to prefer that you rotate through here, because that's a good way of actually seeing who you are, what you're made of, who you are as a person and as a doctor. The program takes a very big, puts a lot of weight on those things. So you could do a rotation with us, like a visas. Being from Puerto Rico, that's like the main thing. Just tell me if you want to do a rotation here with a visas. I will be your spokesperson. I will, do whatever I can to get you here. I'll talk with the leadership. Just let me know, okay, I can help you guys. So get involved as much as possible. Send an email to Mary Gallagher or Dr. Timmons. Tell them that you're interested. Tell them if you can come into our virtual activities. They'll send you the link. Stay in contact if you truly want to get involved and be here. I would tell you that that's probably the best thing you can do. So that's kind of the quick and dirty presentation. I guess now we're open to questions. I'm pretty sure you have a lot. This seems kind of short. I did send Sergio the link for our main website that we kind of were sending it to the interviewees of this cycle. And that also has a bunch of information, but I think I kind of covered most of it, what it's kind of made of, So
Yeah.
any questions?
Thank you so much for that, Kyle. And yes, I actually did got it, and I did share it around. So everybody, if you're associated to the channel, at least at the UPR, you can find it. For people that are not from the UPR, I will try to. I'll try to share it right now while questions are going on. And I would like to start actually one question, Kyle, if I may. I'm wondering. So, I mean, definitely you wanted to stay here in Puerto Rico. That's a fact, and it's amazing that given the circumstances, you found a place in which you feel, gracias, Natasha, you feel so accepted, and you feel such a part of the community. Because I think that's a big thing in Puerto Rico, right? Camaraderie and how you create it, given the reality of medicine here. Sometimes it's a little bit complicated to practice it. But other than that, like, what are things that you see at the program in Indiana that you feel like kind of overlap with how neurosurgery was done here in Puerto Rico? I mean, I know you didn't really get a lot of time to be actually in the program, but from what you saw, or like in general, what are things that you feel like overlap?
So I really didn't think that, getting that closeness that the UPR residents had in Puerto Rico was very easily feasible elsewhere because of like cultural reasons and things like that. I thought that, you know, getting that warmness with other residents wasn't going to be like the same, but I've been surprised at how, you know, smooth it's been. The other thing, I didn't think that because this program there's 18, actually 19 residents now, and in Puerto Rico there were only 11. I thought that it being bigger was going to mean that the residents like knew less of each other or weren't as involved or were like more distant, and that's actually not the case at all. It actually sometimes is a good thing because the more people you have, the more chances you have of people attending activities and the such. Um, so from that perspective, you know, that's something that very much speaks that I saw that was kind of similar. In terms of the cases and all these things, you know, it is a different health system. It's in the mainland US. So there are some differences in terms of caseloads and accessibility to good technologies, right, that weren't present in the program in Puerto Rico, not because, you know, the program couldn't do it. It's mostly because of like other funding reasons. And it's like anything, you know, like, you know, it's not that it was just the Puerto Rico program because a lot of programs in the US, it's not like they have all the cool gadgets and toys, right? But this program does have cool gadgets and toys. We have a couple of robots for spine surgery. So, you know, it's pretty well equipped.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for that answer, Kyle. Because yeah, I think that's a big part of anything. I know we all want to stay home, but if we got to leave, you know, we want to find things that are coming. So, you know, you telling us about those kind of things in Indiana helps a lot. I mean, so the floor is open for anybody else to ask a question. Please do not feel obligated to make the question in English. Kyle is doing it in English just because if the program may see this, you know, so they understand it. But if you want to do it in Spanish, do it in Spanish. Kyle will answer it in English or like try to clear it up. Or if you want to just write it in the chat, also feel free to do it. Okay. So I don't want anybody to feel intimidated or anything by the language. Uh, Natalia made a question, Kyle, which was, how's the research in the program?
Okay, so there's not a strict publication requirement, but that's kind of changing. We are moving more towards being a more heavier academic program, slowly but surely. So I don't know how that's going to change, but right now we're kind of required-ish to do one publication a year. That's not particularly hard at all. The residents are involved in multiple research. It's easy to get into research, not only from the neurosurgical perspective, but from the benchwork perspective. You know, we're right next to Indiana University, Purdue University campus. So there are a lot of research opportunities, a lot of networking opportunities that you can definitely take advantage of.
Amazing.
There's actually a couple of trials that we're going with right now. The Astro study is one of them. There's a couple of clinical trials that are going on actually.
Okay. Would you say that the bulk of the research is related to clinical trials, or do you do a lot of wet lab also?
I mean, it's just that the clinical trials from the neurosurgical perspective is kind of important. That's like why.
Of course.
But there is bench work to be done. I guess
Mhm.
maybe it's just that we prefer to do just like the
Mhm.
clinical research things. I personally prefer to do the clinical research. I'm not so
Me
big on
too. Me too. Me too. I had my fair share.
I've had enough bench. No more pipetting.
Yep. 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 Anybody else have a question? Don't be shy.
You guys can ask me anything. I mean, from the how am I treated as a resident standpoint, you know, we work a lot. I'm not gonna lie, we work hard, but the duty hours are the program is very compliant with the duty hours, and even the chief residents and the people that are above you, if they see you like even trying to break duty hours or being longer than you should, especially after call, they're gonna tell you to leave. as soon as possible. You are going to work a lot. It is neurosurgery, so this is definitely one of the programs where you are going to work. But even though I work a lot, I don't feel frustrated, right? I very much like the people I work with. I like the environment I'm on. I like the hospital. I like the people in the hospital. So from that perspective, you do live in the hospital. The other day I was going to a supermarket and I really didn't know how to get from my house. I mean, from the supermarket to my house. So I just typed in like home in the search and in the maps app. And the app knows where you live, right? That's just what algorithms and things. But the thing is, once I type home and I start following the directions, before I know it, it's taking me to Methodist Hospital. And in all fairness to the app, that's kind of true. I probably spend more time in the hospital than I do home. But even with all
Yeah,
that, I'm not frustrated at all.
that's amazing. I mean, yeah, I guess you got to do what you love, and that's the important thing. Antonio has a question. He says, "Hi, how is the patient population in the residency program?"
So the patient population is it's very diverse. For starters, we are in a city and we are in a tertiary medical center. You saw all those hospitals that I just mentioned. That equals a very big variety of people. Just so you have an idea, like we get anybody from outpatient like stuff, like skull-based tumors that have been kind of chronic, that you have these surgeries that are scheduled, to emergency surgeries, traumas. We get a lot of trauma, so you get very proficient in handling those things. A lot of brain bleeds like ICHs, IVHs. So again, you get very comfortable placing EVDs and things like that, even as a PEY1. Um, People that have that have a ton of chronic conditions, kidney disease, drug use. We get a lot of drug use patients because they just have a bunch of systematic stuff going on and they're very prone to brain bleeds and traumas. So you do get good training as an all-around neurosurgeon. While I was interviewing, I did see some programs that were much more oriented towards outpatient neurosurgery. Like they would do much more outpatient procedures, um, and you didn't really get like good exposure to all these other things that I just mentioned. And again, maybe you're saying that I just want to do outpatient stuff, and maybe that's what you end up doing, but you are getting general training. It kind of would really suck that you graduate from a neurosurgery program and you don't feel comfortable dealing with trauma or some complex cases because you're just so used to just doing the outpatient stuff, right? So that's not at all the case here.
That's amazing. It's amazing. It sounds like a very diverse population. I wanted to add a question to that, and please, anybody else that wants to write a question or like think about it, like uh, do take advantage of the time. This one will be real quick, but I guess we're living in a time where we are fortunately way more acutely aware about our needs outside of the hospital, outside of the classroom, and I think it also happens with generational gaps. I mean, there's a lot of attendings that are millennials, at this point, right? So, we're talking about a generational change shift in which we are more understanding about needs that we have, stemming or moreover ranging from just pure, hey, I need a little bit of downtime, I really need to take my rest, all the way to I have real mental health issues, that I can't just like lock outside of the door whenever I come in. Do you feel like the administration's residents, is the leadership of the program is understand towards that? You feel like you can really approach them and say, hey, at this point in time right now, I'm just not feeling it. I need support. I need understanding. Do you feel like you can have that kind of conversation in the program?
Not only can you have that type of conversation, they're going to have it with you if they see that you're struggling with something. And they're going to have it with you in a very healthy, organic way, right? If you mess up or if they see you're struggling, they're gonna tell you, hey, what's going on? Something problem, or do you need help with something? Um, I have not had an event where I get reprimanded exaggeratingly or unnecessarily so. And if you do get your attention called, it's in a very organically healthy way. It's by no means doesn't make you feel like you shouldn't go on or you should drop out. That's not at all the case.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really important. I think even more for neurosurgery, because I feel like if you're interested in that, you kind of like, at least for me, I don't know if anybody else feels like this and if they want to share. Like sometimes you feel like you kind of have to like set yourself as like not a robot, but definitely feel like you have to bear more than maybe your other colleagues and may go into other specialties just because you know how rigorous it is and how long it is. And I guess there's an advantage to that because definitely you want to be able to to take a lot, but I guess it's also important to draw the line and know like, okay, for me that this is not healthy from here on, and I have to like really say it out loud and feel safe about it. So I mean, for me, hearing that, it's incredible because I mean, even like clinical rotations right now as an MS3, like sometimes I'm in my OB-GYN right rotation and I had like a breakdown last week just because of like all the documents I had to sign that I feel like couldn't do it. Uh, and I mean, in the end, everybody was really understanding. It was really all in my head, but you need to get it out and feel safe to get it out of your head to make sure that everything is fine. So it's very nice to hear that. Anybody else have a question? Also, if you want to ask, I'm very sure that Kyle would also feel comfortable talking about like what happens out of the hospital, what's his work-life balance is. So you don't really have to ask only about the program. If you really want to ask Kyle if he gets to have a life, I guess that's a valid question. Also, I mean, he already told you he spends a lot of time in the hospital, but yeah.
So, as I said, you work a lot. I'm not gonna lie, you work hard and you work a lot. Working the amount of, even if you work just under the duty hour limits, let's say you work 80 hours a week, which is just a duty hour limit. 80 hours a week is, that's still a pretty healthy chunk of your life, right? That's going just towards working. That's that's something that's real. But I guess one of the good things is that in your surgery you do call, right? You have to take call. Sometimes you have to take a pretty healthy amount of it. The thing is, like, once you get out of call, you have a post-call day, right? So you finish your call early in the morning, and then you're free. You're gonna go sleep, and maybe you go and die in your bed for 5 hours, but then you wake up, right? And if you go to sleep at 9:30, you could get maybe 5 hours of sleep. That's still, you have a pretty good healthy chunk of the day still left if you feel like you could do things. You could always just, you should probably rest when you get home. You should not start doing things because you're going to feel very tired. Okay. So you rest and then you have some free time. That's very nice. I'm not going to lie. That's very nice. But again, everybody has their different sleep needs. But you definitely can have a life. As I said, the people in the hospital are very friendly. They're young. Some people, some of the nurses and some of the staff, nursing staff, right, or techs or anything like that, they're like your generation. So they're more than happy to hang out, make groups, go out, have fun. That's something that's very easy to do because people are nice. If you're nice to people here, people will be nice to you. And it's very easy to make friends.
That's right here. I mean, I had my first call last Friday. It was my first 24-hour call. So I can really attest to what Kyle says. You get out of there. I only got to sleep like 2 hours at most. Like it was like divided. So like when I got home, I literally slept like I said, oh, I'm gonna wake up like at 12. No, I woke up like at 3 p.m. I got at my apartment like at 8. So and definitely it was rest that was very well needed. So it's good to
And
hear that too.
you get used to that, like
Mhm.
surprisingly enough. Um, I'm not gonna lie, being a resident is 1,000 times better than being a med student. Believe it or not, the system has already degraded your spirits so much that by the time you're a resident, you're like, wow, this is awesome. Okay. Um, you actually get to treat people, you get to do things, you feel like you're actually contributing to the health of the patient. You're making decisions, you're running them through your supervisors, but still you're coming up with plans, and you're talking with families and neurosurgery. That's super important because sometimes we can't do a whole lot of things for the CSIS themselves, but sometimes we could just help families through the worst day of their lives. And that's something I really like about neurosurgery. um, Believe me, you're going to enjoy being a doctor much more than being a med student. Being a med student sucks, and that's as bad as it gets, maybe. Um, so just keep that in mind. From a personal experience, I thought that residency was going to be much harder, much more exhausting than I feel it actually is. You feel that you're going to have this huge weight on your shoulders of taking care of the lives of people, of having to sacrifice a big chunk of your life. But the reality is I am enjoying it very much. Again, if you're here, it's because you're interested in neurosurgery. So you know the reality of it, right? You know that it's something that takes time. It takes sacrifice, but you can have a life. There's a couple of residents that are married, have kids. There's 18 of us, and I mean, 19 of us. And I would say there's like 4 or 5 that have kids. So, you know, everything's doable, everything's possible. Neurosurgery is not the only job that requires 80 hours of work. Okay, there's people that work 80 hours because they really need to put food down on the table. So it's very doable and you're going to enjoy it. The other thing I wanted to mention, and in living in Indianapolis, it's not so bad because it's not super expensive. I actually bought a house. So, you know,
In this economy,
yeah, I bought a house.
I always wanted to say that. That's amazing. No, but that's amazing. That's amazing, really.
So, you know, you're going to enjoy this new period of your life. Just try to make sure that you, I guess it's not so easy, but just make sure you pick a program high up in your rank list that you feel you're going to like. Okay. That's not so easy to do. I would recommend talking with the residents of the programs you interview on. Do that definitely, and do it independently, not just on the big activities, but like give them a call, like just get as much information from the program as you can. And you're going to know when a resident is not happy about the place they're in. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be very obvious. After interviewing twice, going through basically a match twice, I can tell you start to pick up on a lot of things after you've been doing it for a while. And I could say, like, I could tell from talking with the residents what were places that the residents felt very frustrated with. And when I interviewed here, that was not the case at all. And after living here and being part of the program, I can tell you that it's a very nice program. You're going to be very safe here, and
That's amazing to hear.
you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to become a great neurosurgeon.
That's amazing to hear. And I mean that comparison with like being a med student and resident, that's like ominously optimistic. It's like it really I feel invigorating in that sense, like knowing, that you get there and it's actually as badass as you think it's going to be, you know. So that's really amazing. Thank you for sharing all that, Kyle. Well, I don't know if anybody has any other questions or that they want to like talk about or just write about. But if not, you have Kyle's email there. Please, everybody that's here, see it. write it, jot it down. Kyle does not lie when he says that you can contact him. I know I'm his friend for a long time, but I assure you that that does not change anything. I am very sure that the same way that he like always texts back the exact moment he can, and I'm sure he'll do that with you. I believe, Kyle, you're like free until one, because I know you got like a couple of free time. When do you go back to like actual clinic work?
I mean, right now I'm in my neuroradiology rotation,
Okay.
and I still have to take call.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you get
but
to be okay.
just just feel comfortable sending me a message or whatever. Um, I usually get back as soon as I can because I live attached to my phone. Now, one of the cool things we have here is we have an application that's called Diagnotes. So instead of the pager, you have a full-blown dedicated hospital-wide app that gets you in contact with any provider you want, and you can message them directly. You know who's on call for what service. It's a very good thing. And being a millennial, we love to text. So I guess these are going to be the types of texts you hate because they usually mean you have to go do something. But it's a very good communicating program for the hospital. I very much enjoy it.
That's amazing. Well, there you got it, guys. He's accessible as accessible as he can be. So really take advantage of that, and really take advantage of writing to the programs and telling you're interested, and that you can actually be part of the academic programs. Because right now we're doing everything by Zoom still. So I think it would be a great chance for you guys to really jump in. Maybe I'll do it myself. So anyways, if there's no other questions, I'm going to thank Kyle a lot for his time here with us. I really hope he enjoyed it as much as we do. He really gave us a lot of significant information, and he really put himself at our disposal. I think that's the most important thing right now. So anyways, stick around. Moreover, be on the loop. We'll keep you guys on the loop for future activities. Next week, we have topics in neurosurgery with Carolina Peyot, who's the president of the Ponce group. She's going to give you a great talk. And after that, we're going to be having more programs in neurosurgery talks with the other residents. So, if you don't follow us yet, follow us on our Instagram page. I'm going to write it here real quick. And student. And there you can really just see everything that we post about. So thank you guys very much. Thank you, Kyle. Have a good night.
Yep, no problem. Take care, guys. Thanks for having me.